What's up, everybody? On today's video, we're going to look at the top 10 reasons you should never move to North Carolina. A lot of people are drawn to the mountains, the beaches, and the perfect weather, but there's a side of North Carolina that very few people on the internet are going to tell you about. With low-paying wages and the cost of living increasing in North Carolina, it's no surprise that a lot of people are disappointed that they moved here. And don't get me wrong, it's not Alabama, Louisiana, or Mississippi bad, but there's a lot of things about North Carolina that suck, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's video. I mean, it's not that much better than the states I mentioned. It's noticeably better, but not significantly better. You know what? Let me take that back. It's not even noticeably different. It's kind of exactly like some of these states I mentioned. And I'll be honest, if you live in North Carolina and you haven't traveled outside of your state, you've never been to New York, you've never been to Florida, you've never been to California or Texas in the last 2 years, shut up. I don't want to hear your opinion, okay? Your opinion is completely insignificant. Have you ever traveled outside of your state? Oh no, I've never left North Carolina. Well, then maybe you should shut up because you don't know what you're talking about. Number 10 is disgusting food. North Carolina has some of the worst food you'll find anywhere in America. And while the Deep South prides itself in having some of the best barbecue, let me tell you, their Carolina variations are definitely not even worth trying. Their sweet tea is not as good as Alabama sweet tea, and their barbecue is redundantly sweet. It's almost repulsive. Did you know that Hardee's originated in North Carolina? That should just give you an idea how bad these people's cuisine is. Gustavo moved from Miami to North Carolina about 20 years ago, and he tells me that the one thing he never understood about North Carolina is how crappy their food is. I had another friend who worked for the military, and he told me he would rather eat government rations than at some of the local restaurants he has in his North Carolina town. Number 9. They're a bunch of sensitive pricks. My goodness. You have to be so careful dealing with people in North Carolina because they will get offended at everything. Whether you're checking into a hotel or making an order at one of their horrible restaurants, they are very sensitive. They can get offended at anything. This place is full of Karens, and everywhere you go, you'll notice how easily irritated some of the locals are. Whether they're driving around or just getting groceries, you'll have to be very careful how you thread around these spiny, cactus-like people who are always on the defensive. Number 8 is race baiting. The people here love to point a finger at somebody else and accuse them of being racist. It's like it warms their heart to know that other people are as hateful as they are. A recent study found that the number one hobby in North Carolina is accusing other people of being racist. Madalia lives outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and she tells me that she spends 2 hours a day on Facebook replying to messages of people in racially motivated arguments. She tells me that sometimes she'll wake up randomly in the middle of the night just to reply to a Facebook comment. Even if what you're saying isn't exactly racist or even remotely racist, if it can be taken out of context to perhaps could sound like something racist, you can bet the people in North Carolina are going to take up an issue with it. Number 7, angry people. It's the people that suck in North Carolina. The rivers are beautiful, the mountains are gorgeous, and their beaches are amazing. We're not really upset with the place of North Carolina. The place is amazing. It's the people that make it a miserable place to live. Whether you're driving through Charlotte, North Carolina, on Russell's Ferry Road, or you're in a country road somewhere out of Asheville, the one thing that's guaranteed is that the drivers are going to be angry. And it's not just road rage, there's also foot rage. Whether you're walking, driving, or flying an airplane over North Carolina, you'll notice how angry the people here are, and their violent tendencies are ready to explode. It really doesn't take much to send one of these local North Carolinians on a complete anger outrage. Literally, on a daily basis, you're going to encounter people that are so angry, they're screaming at each other in public. Number 6 is rural addiction. If you think the cities in North Carolina are bad, wait until you get out in some of these rural areas, especially on the western end of the state, near Appalachia, the region of the country with the highest overdose death rates. This region of Appalachia has the highest overdose death rate in the entire world. That means that people here are consuming more than anywhere else. Why are these people so miserable? I'm not sure. Whether it's right outside of your hotel in Asheville, North Carolina, or on a country road near a mountain, you'll find people shooting up everywhere, needles on the ground. It's absolutely disturbing how much addiction these rural communities have, especially on the western side of the state. And despite all the natural beauty that the state has to offer, when you want to do something fun, most people drive to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, because most of North Carolina is a really boring place outside of its natural beauty, and perhaps that's why the people here are simply miserable. When Jason Aldean said, "try that in a small town," he must have been talking about some type of opioid, because that's the only thing some of these small town people have tried in a very long time. And I know rural areas are suffering with this issue throughout the entire country, but let me just remind you, along this part of Appalachia, it's the worst in the entire country. I remember we were at a Confederate memorial in one small town in North Carolina, and there was a bum defecating in front of it. I gave him a $20 bill, and I made him promise that he would only use it for good things. Number 5 is bad hygiene. You have to be really careful in North Carolina because some of these people are so dirty, you might think they're homeless and offer them money or food when they're really not. I know this may make people feel jealous in West Virginia or Kentucky, but when it comes to bad hygiene, nobody beats North Carolina. Simply walking down the streets, you can smell how bad some of these people are reeking. If you're staying at a hotel in North Carolina, I strongly advise you to check for bed bugs behind the bedboard before you settle in, and try to stick to the nicer hotels because the hygiene here is really bad. Coming from South Florida, where we bathe regularly, it's really incredibly disturbing to see people wearing dirty clothes, dirty boots, smelling bad, and you can tell they haven't showered for several days. I do a lot of work with the homeless in Florida, and many times they struggle to find a place to bathe. But even our homeless people in Florida don't smell as bad as the average person in North Carolina. Gustavo, who we mentioned earlier that moved to North Carolina from Miami, told me that he likes to deworm his family almost on an annual basis because the hygiene is so bad that their family constantly gets tapeworm infestations. And he says that anytime he lets locals visit his home, he sprays them down with sulfuric acid to make sure that they don't get bed bugs inside of his home. He's even gone as far as telling people to take their shoes off before entering his home with some religious pretext. But despite all his efforts, his children still get lice and ticks every time he sends them to the public schools. Number 4. Carolina is a landfill for people. California, Florida, New York, we've been flushing the toilet on North Carolina and dumping all of our poor, impoverished, and lazy people there. The ones who are looking for affordable housing and better wages. They simply can't make it in the concrete jungle. So we ship them off to North Carolina where they can have affordable housing and somewhat better paying jobs for people who are unskilled. The hilarious part is that people in North Carolina think that people are moving there because it's better. Bless their heart, they just don't know any better. The reason people are moving to North Carolina from these states like California, Florida, and New York is because they just can't make it in these busy, large cities. They're either too unskilled, too stupid, too lazy, so they end up in North Carolina. Ironically, the locals have been led to believe that the reason these people are moving to North Carolina is because it's a great place to be. They actually think that they're the fastest growing state because they're better than everybody else. Little do they know that we're just flushing the toilet on them. Of course, North Carolina is a poor southern state, so when transplants from New York or California move there, it's led the locals to believe that they're better than California and New York. Bless your heart. No, honey, these are people that can't afford to live in Miami anymore because the rents are too high. They don't have enough skills, so they move to Carolina because it's cheaper. They're not moving to North Carolina because it's the greatest state in the country. They're moving there because they can't afford New York City and Miami anymore. Most likely the reason they can't afford it is because they're very unskilled or lazy. It might surprise you, but some of these idiots in North Carolina actually believe that the reason people are moving to their state is because their state's attractive, failing to notice that the real reason people are moving there is because they can't afford to live in nice places like Miami, Los Angeles, or New York. Bless their heart, they're sweeter than their barbecue. Number 3 is polarizing politics. Oh, it's unbearable. In North Carolina, they're either a raging liberal or a backwards conservative. There's no middle ground here. People are either on one extreme or the other, and they want to put it in your face, whether they're a dumb inbred hick or a urbanite, whatever the crap they're into. They just want you to know what their ideology is. It's overwhelming. It's relentless. In Asheville, North Carolina, you're looking at a rainbow-haired bum defecating on a needle. Then some inbred hick in a 1982 Dodge Ram drives by rolling coal on him with an 18-foot Confederate flag. It's these polarizing views in the same place, and the people are just unbearable with their politics. Whether they're trying to convince you not to have an abortion, like, hey, dude, I'm not even a woman. Why are you having this conversation with me? Well, you know, the porter's out of control. We got wide open porter. I'm like, yeah, Billy, you know, your arms are wide open too. Can you just lower them because your armpits really stink? I was in an Asheville Starbucks trying to get my breakfast, and they asked me if they would make my whipped cream a rainbow whipped cream. I was like, I don't know what that is, but please, ma'am, I just want to have my breakfast before we start talking about politics. And then she was like really offended. She's like, are you even going to tip us for even trying? I was like, no, I'm already paying $36 for 2 sandwiches and a coffee. How much more money do you want me to spend here? Then there was the incident checking into the hotel where I didn't know if it was a sir or a ma'am. So I went with the ma'am because if I got it wrong, I could just be like, no, I said man, not ma'am. And the person was like, started crying. They're like, you're so understanding of my nature and you acknowledge my identity. I'm like, no, I didn't acknowledge it. I just took a good guess. I didn't know what the crap you were. Anyways, whatever end of the spectrum these people are on in North Carolina, it's always on an extreme, and dealing with their polarizing views is definitely a nightmare. I gotta take it easy with the rainbow jokes. My paycheck comes out of California, but so I can go hard on one wing of this chicken, but if I go on the wrong wing of this chicken, they're not gonna spray any gravy on me. Yeah, if it wasn't for cancel culture, we'd be having as many California jokes as we'd having Billy jokes, but well, I get paid fairly well from YouTube, so we'll be doing a lot more Alabama jokes than we will California jokes. After all, my paycheck comes from California, not West Virginia. Well, Jose, you're just a raging little lib now, aren't you? I'm like, no, I work for Google. I don't want to get fired. I work for YouTube, not UFox. If UFox was paying better than YouTube, we'd be having a lot less Billy jokes, wouldn't we? Number 2 is Charlotte, North Carolina. This city is everything we've talked about on today's video, but on steroids. We've been in Charlotte like 2 or 3 times for our YouTube channel, and every single time we've gone there, we've had somebody make us a victim of a violent crime, or we witnessed some horrific traffic accident. This city is full of criminals, impatient, violent people, and when you call the law, unless somebody's getting killed, literally, the law enforcement won't show up. They'll tell you that. When you dial 911 in most cities, it's something like, hey, like, this is Mary, like, what's wrong? What happened? Like, how can we help you? When you call the cops in Charlotte, North Carolina, you get a machine that says, if you're not dead, we're not going to go out there because we don't want to spend any money. It was your idea to defund us, so now you can die on the dang streets of Charlotte. It was your idea, dumb people. Well, bless your heart. Now you need our services all of a sudden. Well, you weren't when you were wearing that dang NWA shirt. You didn't need our services. Now all of a sudden you got popped upside the head. Now you need the law. Well, I thought you didn't like the law. Why are you calling us, Charlotte, North Carolina? You know what? Why don't you try calling the law in Asheville, North Carolina, and see if they'll come over here and help you? If you really are having a life or death situation, one of our underpaid officers will be on the way if you press 1. If you're already dead, press 2. If y'all speak English, please press
001232167476894630338041114738577658640581234590128899665.
Folks was saying we were racist. We weren't trying to help the Latino community. That's why we devised this machine here to help people who don't speak English have easy access to law enforcement in their own native language. Well, then if that wasn't enough, in Charlotte, North Carolina, I had somebody call me a Latinx. I said, you call me that one more time, we're going to have a problem. Who the crap gave you the authority to rebrand me? I'll relabel myself if I want to. Please don't do it for me. And the number one reason that North Carolina sucks is they simply hate outsiders. Look, these people don't even like each other. So what makes you think they're going to like you from New York, driving around their city in a nice car, when they're broke, driving around in a 1997 Ford F-150 with a cracked manifold, 287,000 miles, with a Jason Aldean CD stuck in the CD player, which sounds exactly like the music he's got coming out now since he hasn't changed his tone in about 15 years. Look here, Jose, you need to take it easy on Jason Aldean, man. I like his new song, Small Town. You know what? Screw Jason Aldean. He doesn't live in a small town in his county. Have you seen what a small town in the county he lives in looks like? Dude, he lives on the beach. Maybe he should have made a song, try that in a beach town, because he's not living in a small town, especially in the county he lives in Florida. Those small towns are terrifying. Do you know how hypocritical that is? He doesn't live in a small town. He bought a house by the beach. For Jason Aldean to make a song about a small town is as hypocritical as me making a song about how I love the Deep South. But anyways, why would you move to a state that hates outsiders? These people don't even like each other. Like I said, they certainly won't like you, and they're going to do everything they can to make your life as miserable as theirs. Alright everybody, that's today's list of the top 10 reasons living in North Carolina sucks. If you're thinking about moving there because it's more affordable, I just want you to know that the people suck. It's not the place. The mountains are beautiful. The rivers, the changing seasons, all that is gorgeous in North Carolina. It's the people you're going to encounter that will make your experience unpleasant. And many times they're going to do it on purpose because they don't want you to live in their state. And honestly, you don't want to live there either. You're not going there because it's better. You're going there because you can't afford the state you're currently in. I would advise you to get your money up, stop being a lazy piece of crap, because if you don't, you're going to end up living in North Carolina with other people just like you. And I'm a well-intentioned person. I do everything that I can to help other people. For example, we have a huge homeless population where I live in Florida, and I've been trying to convince the homeless people that they should move to North Carolina. I really do what I can for my community. And a lot of people in North Carolina are going to say, well, you know, you live in Florida. Isn't Florida horrible? Yeah, it's not great here in every aspect possible, but it's a whole lot better than North Carolina. Our drivers are not as aggressive. Our homeless population isn't as large. And well, our people are kinder than the people in North Carolina. We have real beaches here, and our barbecue doesn't taste like you dumped a gallon of sugar on top of a pumpkin and then caramelized the sugar with a blowtorch and used a freaking possum carcass instead of a freaking steak or rib or whatever the crap barbecue's made out of these days. All right, those are the top 10 reasons I hate North Carolina.